I'm going to muddle through this, and maybe Malia can actually be more, I don't want to put you on the spot, Malia. I just see that you are there. Jackie's here. Perhaps they have something to say as well. I can just talk a little bit about the course that I am putting together. It's being piloted right now, to really talk about each of the aspects of DEIA and actually ask the participants in this course to start the structure of their course from that point. Because very often we find that a lot of these, diversity, inclusion, etc., are kind of plastered on afterwards. So an instructor will have a course that they want to teach and then say, oh, yes, and let's make sure we make it accessible. Let's go through it and make sure that there's inclusive language, etc., as opposed to kind of starting in from the very beginning with that as the foundation. And when I think about content that I want to promote in my class, making sure that the content already starts from that premise of being diverse, inclusive, equitable, etc. So, and all the discussions and all the assignments, etc., really being from that premise of inclusivity and belonging that we're looking for. So really, I think that that's all. I can take people through the course, see what that looks like if people are interested, but I don't know if that's of interest to people or if they
so
want to
many
rather.
Apologies for putting you on the spot today, Caroline. We were, to everybody who was coming in a little bit later, we had slated, as you know, Sarah Oliver Carter to speak today, but for whatever reason she is not here. So it's us filling in on the different areas. Oh, thank you. David's putting some things in the chat too. So I put Caroline on the spot so that she could bring you up to speed on some of the things that we're working as it relates to the Title III grant. And yeah, I would love to see, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think it would be really great to see the content that you're putting out there. And I mean, I know some of it, but it would be great to have that shared. So yeah.
Okay, so let me just pull that up.
And then we can just move into a discussion about what we think the needs might be, and certainly continue to have this discussion as we wrap up this year and prepare for the fall.
Right. One thing, let me see what I can share.
While you're doing that, Jessica has her hand up. Go ahead, Jess.
I'm sure Caroline's not surprised by this, but I just had a question. So just thinking of like moving stuff to the fall, is there has there like any other easier ways of like copying stuff over like how we used to for Schoology or Schoology? Because I feel like whenever you copy things over, like I have just been like rebuilding things like week to week from my converted class. Because when I go to like copy things over, I can't move it quite over to the right spot. Like it duplicates somewhere else and I can't like move it like how I used to do in Schoology. Like I could pick the exact folder that I wanted to go to, but I can't seem to do that.
Jessica, we can definitely help you with that if you want to do a one-on-one with David, Caroline, or me.
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds very surprising to me because most people have found that the copying is seamless, even much less complicated than Schoology, and really works well. So I'm kind of surprised to hear that. But if you are having difficulty, then please make an appointment with the CTRL, and we'll help you through that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think because I had started the show, like it organized it. My plan was like I wanted to double check all the links and everything. So that's why I was kind of uploading and making sure everything was fresh versus copying everything over like how I wanted to. So I think I did it to myself. I know I did that, but
because even if you want to copy piece by piece, you can do that too.
Yeah,
you don't have to copy the entire course. You do have to be a little careful because things are pretty intertwined
yes.
in bright space. So if you copy one thing without all its connections, then you may have to rebuild some of the connections.
Right.
Like, you know, to the great book or whatever, things like that. But copying it piece by piece is also, you know, you can definitely do that if you'd like. So, you know, making an appointment probably is the best way to go and help you through that.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, did I see somebody else's hand up? No, I guess
I
not.
think it was
Okay.
David.
Okay, all right. Okay, so this is the, there is one student who's taking this class right now. I mean, not a student, she's actually a faculty member, taking this class right now, who is giving me some feedback, which is really good. Let me just, okay. So starting from the table of contents, we actually have, yeah, this is another thing that we're really looking to do, is to kind of bake in the Mercy mission into our courses. And that's sort of the foundation of the UDL, the Universal Design for Learning, which we're going to learn a lot more about over Summer Institute. So please save the dates. That's July 15th, 16th, and 17th. So we have a great keynote speaker who's not from Carlow, who's from, is that from Purdue? Is that?
She's an independent consultant, but I did meet her through Purdue, yeah.
Okay, and so she's going to be here. Really, we're going to really delve into the whole Universal Design for Learning. I do remember a number of years ago, there was a bit of push to do that at Carlow, and it never really took hold. So here we are again. We're trying to, and it's really, it's not, it doesn't add to your work. It actually helps your work a lot, to become a lot easier. So that's something that we're really trying to look for. So we have this, the first module of this course is actualizing the Mercy mission, with an overview of what is UDL and what is diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. We go into the different modes and modalities of delivery, including face-to-face, online, hybrid, what all those mean, and what the benefits, what are some of the challenges that we come up with some of these, and what are some of the points that that people can really capitalize on as you deliver something online. There's certain parts of it that are really powerful that you do not have in a face-to-face class. So how do you capitalize on those things? Then we start with what we call backward design, which is how do you design a course from the bottom up? And you always start with your objectives. What are the objectives that you want by the end of this class? The students are going to come away with these skills, this body of knowledge, the way that they can apply this body of knowledge. If we start with that and have those as our target, then we talk about what assessments, how do we know that they've actually met that target? And that's where the assessments come in. So we always start with our assessments first. What do we look at the objectives and we figure out what are the assessments that we want a student to be able, if they can pass this assessment, we know that they've met that. We know that they've met that objective. Then we come to what I'm calling the substance of the course, which is where the students actually interact with the content, with each other. And what does that will look like? What activities do they need in order to be able to pass the assessment? What practice do they need? What information do they need in order to pass the assessment, which is going to tell us that they've met the objectives? So we kind of work backwards. Very often, an instructor will say, well, I'd like to make sure that we cover chapters 1, 3, and 5. But the question is going to always be why? Why do I want to cover chapters 1, 3, and 5? What's that going to do for me? So that's where we start. We kind of turn it around and start from the objectives. And then we we take a look at the content, are chapters 1, 3, and 5 the best ways for the students to learn this content that will help them pass the assessment and show that they've met the objectives. Then I talk about preparing and teaching. Okay, I have a thing about how to create activities and content so that we're not only relying on textbooks and videos from YouTube, which are very powerful things and definitely should not be ignored, but there's a lot more that we can do to help a student learn things in different ways and to create those activities and content. Some of those are very simple, they're free, and they're powerful ways to get across information and highlight things that students may struggle with. And then I talk about how do you prepare to teach an online course, which many people, when they're coming from, especially from a face-to-face atmosphere, face-to-face environment, when they're told to teach an online course, it's a big shift and people might not be prepared for that. So here's where I help you prepare for teaching an online course. So if there are any questions or comments, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can actually see people. Okay. Yeah, if there are any comments. So David, you have.
Yes, so there is, I put it in the chat here, but there is an accessibility tool built into Brightspace, and it certainly does not cover every possible thing that Caroline's covering in the course that she showed, but it covers some of the big things that tend to cause problems, like missing alt text for images or poor color contrast, improper use of headings or text or lists or tables. And so the directions in the chat do show how that works. What it is, it's not like a course-wide tool. It's a tool within each text box when you're editing like a page or an assignment or a discussion. There's a toolbar at the top of that text box when you're entering your directions. And the help document does demonstrate that there's a check mark with an eyeball button in that text box. And that is the accessibility checker. So it's basically just like a spell checker, except for accessibility. It will call out things that it thinks are wrong. If it knows a suggestion that it wants you to try, it will suggest something. And if it doesn't, it will just call out that it's wrong and, let you correct it. And so that certainly doesn't guarantee that every single item in the course is accessible, but it's a good way to greatly improve the amount of accessible content, at least within the Brightspace text boxes.
Thank you. Does somebody else have their hand up? No, okay. Oh, Jackie, yes.
Hi, and hopefully this is useful and I'm not stepping in on where you didn't expect me to be, but I know you didn't expect not to have your speaker either. So hopefully I'm helping with a few things. I want to remind you, we still have access to census access, which as you're uploading materials, can turn things into alt text material for you. So alternate text are texts that allow a screen reader for people who have vision deficits to read across the page. And the development of that, a document that allows a screen reader to read is important. So in some cases, you have PDFs, you have materials that you want to upload into your class. And you're like, I don't have the time to fiddle with this. We have census access at no cost to you. And also it's available to the students independently, but you can send that. And if it's not terribly complex, if it doesn't have a lot of charts and graphs and graphics, you'll get it back within 15 to 20 minutes. It will have been converted to an alt text. You can get a Braille file. You can get a Daisy reader for math, Daisy reader for text, and an MP3 file. Now, somebody just asked, where can we find this? And it used to live on Isadora, and I'm noticing that it's not there on the disabilities page. So I'll be checking with IT to make sure it gets put back on there. But I will give a link, Caroline, to you as well, so that that can be put into your resource list.
Yeah, it is on the carlow.edu.
Okay.
Right.
So
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
that's
That's
okay.
okay. Yeah,
And
thank
it's
you.
called document conversion. You can upload just like you do an attachment to an email, and it will do that. If you're working with Adobe Pro and you're making your own PDFs, it has an accessibility tool as well. And you should be able to use that tool, and it will tell you where you're not accessible. And it will provide ways you can make it accessible. So those are some independent tools. We also have Read and Write Gold. Read and Write Gold is paid for by the university. It's available to every student, faculty, and staff member. If you don't have it as a staff or faculty member on your Carlow computer, you can ask to have it loaded on there. Read and Write Gold that can be found also to load on your personal computer, as long as you're a Carlow employee or student. That can be found on the Disability Services page, and you'll see it says Read and Write Gold for Mac, Read and Write Gold for Windows. What Read and Write Gold offers are options for your students and for yourself to have read aloud options for materials you've already made that don't have to be converted. It allows for help with writing at a deeper level than, say, a Word option has. There's also a translator feature on there for up to 7 different languages. So if you have ELL students who are struggling, they may be able to read in what we have in English, read out loud to them in their language, and then they can translate back to English if that works for them. But it also has something called screen masking, which covers the screen except for a reading window, which helps with people being able to focus. So if a student is coming to you as an advisor and they're saying, I'm really struggling with how to stay focused and what to do when I'm reading because I'm in an online class or because you've presented the materials online, you can provide Read and Write Gold. You can meet with us. There is a technology tutor in the CAA. We have our GA works with students in that as well. And then there's a couple of AI pieces that are available to students as well that we could talk about. But those are some ways in which, as Caroline said, as you're building, as you're revising, as you're taking a look at your work, you're able to get supports and help and things that are out there already that are very intuitive, easy to use, don't add to your work, and actually allow you to set yourself up for being accessible all the way through. And then the last thing I would say, and I've said this in other areas, so if you were in some other meeting with me and I said this, I apologize, but we say redundancy builds long-term memory, right? And you can have automatic retrieval of this. But that is to say, when you're thinking about your course, remember that you are an instinctive user of your material. You live in that world and it is so familiar to you. It's like driving home. You drive home and you don't even remember how you got there. But you've noticed that you were able to avoid every pothole on your street because you know how to get there and you did it without even thinking. But if you invite someone new to your home, like you're inviting new students new to your material, they don't know the potholes and they're likely to fall into them. And if you're lucky, they only, get a little jolted. Otherwise, we could break an axle, right? Like access in this course. And so if you can think of the potholes ahead of time, if you can pay attention to the areas where an instinctive user is not going to find it easy, you're going to tag the areas that you need to create more accessible options for the students. Right. So I'm always telling people, like, find the potholes, think about the potholes, and then you have to decide, am I going to cold fill them? Right. It's a temporary fix for this period, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to like resurface the whole road, or do I have an option to just outline these potholes in the beginning of the course, tell people I expect you're going to have difficulty here, and I'm available for you at these times and spaces to help you with those things. So that's kind of, to me, very low bar way of thinking about your accessibility. What are the potholes? How do I fill them? How do I identify them to the student? How do I prepare that the student is going to need me at particular times? And what do we have that will help me help them? And so I just wanted to add that little piece, if that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you very, very much, Jackie. That was very helpful. I do want to just mention that in this course, and it will be available for basically anybody. I just want to get it through this pilot, this pilot phase. I do mention a number of those things, and I think I will add some more, thanks to Jackie. So about, what we have available here at Carlow. I also want to point out, and I can advertise, that we just finished revamping that old Oscar rubric to make it much more accessible to the faculty, and have it much more as a tool that you can go through it, and there are baked in resources for you to go through your course and see, does this work for students? Does it have the things it needs to help students be successful in the course, as far as structure goes, as far as like how are you wording your assignments? Is it simple? Do you make sure that your final project is referred to as the same words every time you mention it? Or sometimes you're talking about the final project and other terms about the term paper and other terms about, like, does it speak to that, different in different places, which is very confusing for students. So this is a checklist, and it's really good to have you or a colleague go through the checklist, because as Jackie mentioned, you're really familiar with it. It's very beneficial to have an outside person look at your course and see, oh, I see this pothole. It's known in other circles as the expert blind spot. When you're an expert in something, you don't see where other people might be struggling. So it's beneficial, and we're going to start disseminating this. If you want to reach out to CTRL, you can get a copy of this revamped rubric, and please comment on it. If you say this is not so helpful, we're here to help you, and we're here to try to make things as easy as possible for you. So please, and use us, make appointments with us. We're here to help you with your course design. We're here to help you with not just how do I do this in Brightspace, but can you help me make sure that my whole course is appropriate for students, is helpful? Am I missing something that may be important? So I hope I did justice to this time.
You did more than justice to it, Caroline, as I knew you would. Yeah, I can't emphasize enough that regardless of modality, we are here for you. Yeah, I think, Caroline, you can put that in the chat for everybody, and we'll also post it with the recording of this session. So I want to emphasize again, it's regardless of modality, we're here to help you build your courses, make them accessible, make sure that you have what you need in order to feel confident in the classroom and get a great learning experience for your students. But we're also here to help you with your research. And Rich put in the chat some of the work that he's been doing. And so since I put Caroline on the spot and David on the spot, I may as well put Richard on the spot too. So Rich, you want to jump to the forefront and share the amazing work that you've been doing to curate content for diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Yeah, thanks, Alexis. So it certainly makes sense to highlight this. This is a work in progress, but honestly, a document like this probably needs to be a work in progress and will always be that, because it's going to be updating and changing. as our understandings of, you know, these concepts and just new resources are released. So just to give you kind of an overview of what the purpose of this guide is it's to just first of all introduce some key resources and concepts in diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. I've provided a couple of definitions and citations from where they came from. Maybe you're interested in incorporating just some quick and easy definitions of like what is anti-racism versus, you know, say just not saying something racist, right? How does this distinguish from it? And then, of course, key in here is what does it mean when we talk about intersectionality, which really comes into play when we're looking at how a lot of, you know, individual identities then come to kind of coalesce in you know, the whole person. So some of the
Rich,
stuff
you gotta show them the cool tool. Pull up the screen and share your screen with
Oh,
them.
I'm sorry. I thought I was sharing my screen with you. I'm sitting here clicking on things and so on.
Yeah, it's
All right.
really, you did a nice job on it. I
So-
want people to see it.
So there we go. So here's a look at this under our resources. And like I said, so we've got just a couple of easy definitions here. If there are other terms, for instance, that might make sense, this is sort of where we're thinking that would live. I agonized over kind of how to break down the different categories and so on, and really tried to be inclusive. So again, if there's a category I missed or have not done a good job of describing, you know, please let me know. What we're going to do is build out each of these sections to include not just items from our catalog, ebooks or print books, but also say curated lists of journals, some different articles and so on. So that's why I mentioned that this is a bit of a work in progress. But the way each section will work is, you know, here is just a quick definition of the topic, a few selected resources, and then one can kind of move on. So we broke this down to accessibility and disability, Africana studies, Asian American and Pacific Islander studies, gender and women's studies, Hispanic and Latin American studies, LGBTQ studies, Middle Eastern studies, Native American and Indigenous studies, and working class studies as well. And then additional resources. This is kind of the template I want to use for the rest of them as it goes out. We're just going to combine printed ebooks, but then, you know, provide articles and other media. There are some really wonderful TED Talks and so on this topic. I know Ibram Kendi's done some really phenomenal TED Talks out there, just as one example that I was kind of hoping to include in here. So this is sort of a working document. And as I said, the idea is knowing that I am not the expert on this and that I'm sure there are things that I have missed, things that folks can recommend. I would really love to make this kind of our document in a lot of ways, right? Because it's something that I think can speak to a lot of really different experiences that our students and faculty and staff are experiencing. And yeah, Alexis, that's absolutely right. All of these items that we're going to be including, that's really part of it too, is to include resources that are available in our collection so we can curate content on this topic. And I should mention too, that this is something that we can also do for other topics as well, and have certainly done so as well. So I know that's just kind of a brief overview of this. But yeah, I think this is a pretty cool resource, honestly. And there's a lot of really good stuff in here already. And, you know, if you have any suggestions, please don't hesitate to let me know.
Thank you so much, Rich. That's amazing. I know you did a lot of work on that and setting up the infrastructure for it. And I'm looking forward to any feedback that we have from our user groups, that faculty, staff, students, all of us. So really that about wraps up what we've got for you today in terms of our impromptu session on diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. I'll turn it over to any of you who have some comments, thoughts, directions on where we can go, areas that we might be able to explore for professional development for all of you. So we've got a few minutes. I'm happy to answer any questions or have a conversation. Or we don't have to have a conversation. We can just get ready and have a very good break for the next couple of days and enjoy our Easter. I'm so glad to have had you here today. If there are things that you want to explore further, I know that Sarah Oliver Carter is working diligently on this. I'm sure she would love to have some feedback. And I know that as we build out these resources, we would love to have feedback. So please make sure you be in touch, and I'll just let you guys have a half hour of your lives back and enjoy the break. And we'll see you after Easter. So thank you all.